We're talking about actually integrating it and healing it, moving it into the light, not casting it outside of yourself and maybe blocking yourself from being an entirely full human being. Before starting this video, I want to let you know that my program, the 30 Days program, is 50% off up until January 31st of the year 2018. So if you're watching this video and it's before that date, the 30 Days program is 50% off because I'm not able to take clients while I'm out of the country, and I'm leaving the country for Thailand in just a couple of weeks. So you have up until January 31st, 2018 to purchase the 30 Days program at 50% off. Hey beautiful people, how are you? My name is Connor. You're watching Self Healing, and today we're going to be talking about depression, and I'm going to be offering 3 tips to begin healing your depression in a deep and sustainable and long-term way. So we're not talking about tricks, and we're not talking about beating or fighting against depression or hiding depression from yourself. We're talking about actually integrating it and healing it, moving it into the light, not casting it outside of yourself and maybe blocking yourself from being an entirely full human being, because depression is part of you. There are parts of you that are feeling sad and are sending you a message, and they're very important parts of your system, and they just need a little bit more love and attention. So we're going to be talking about 3 real self-healing tips. The first tip to healing depression is going to be changing our narrative with how we view our depression. So it's helpful to understand that we are not entirely depressed when we are feeling depressed. There are parts of us that are feeling depressed. Simply changing that narrative changes our awareness, it changes our brain, it changes our perspective, and it gives us the opportunity to know there are other options here. I am not an entirely depressed being. Parts of me are feeling a lot. Parts of me might be feeling sadness, maybe fear, maybe isolation, maybe loneliness. But other parts of me are still existing, even if they're not the most present. They're still existing. Also changing our narrative so that we're not, like I said earlier, fighting against or beating depression, but rather understanding that depression is simply a message. It's a message saying, I need something. I need something to change. I need some attention on me. I need some awareness. I need some love. That message cannot be overlooked. It is incredibly important. And knowing that depression is there for a reason. It's not something to combat. There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, you have an incredibly healthy system to be noticing that message. And to take that as a signal, hey, I think I need to do something a little differently right now. In fact, it's not only a message, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for healing to take place. When we feel intense emotions, that is us being close to trauma that we can heal. So changing our narrative around how we view a depressed feeling can change the way that we begin to heal and connect with that depression in order to bring it into the light and to integrate it into our system in a healthy and sustainable way. The second tip I can offer you, and I would really like to encourage you to investigate, is to connect with that feeling. That doesn't mean allow yourself to be overwhelmed with the feeling. It means creating a space where you can feel with those parts that are experiencing depression. One way to begin developing a space that feels safe in order to feel with is to do something that's going to help communicate what's happening to you in a different language. So sometimes when we're feeling a lot, we're just experiencing that feeling. We're just like in it, and we don't feel like we really have a clear understanding of what's happening. There are 2 ways to communicate in a different language that might help your brain integrate what's actually going on, and will create a space between those parts that are feeling a lot and a more centered, peaceful, present, calm, and compassionate place that we often refer to on this channel as self, being self-led. So 2 different ways to do that. One way is to simply communicate verbally, out loud, or internally. So you're communicating verbally, you're using your own language to communicate with these parts that are feeling depressed. The first thing you can do to do that is simply say, I feel you. I am feeling you. I am recognizing you. I am paying attention to you. Often, when I'm working with clients who are feeling overwhelmed, and we bring a little bit more awareness to that feeling of being overwhelmed. In other words, we say, does it make sense that you're feeling that way right now? Or are you able to just let that part know that you're feeling it right now? As soon as the client is able to do that, and I've experienced this for myself most certainly, as soon as we're able to do that, those parts often relax. They're being seen. Their message doesn't have to be so resounding because it's clear to them that they're coming through. So that's the first thing you can try out. Is just communicate with yourself internally or even externally. I feel you. I'm feeling you. I know you're there. I'm getting the message. I'm receiving you. And then to take it a step further and to maybe develop a curiosity about why it could be that this feeling, this depression, this part that's experiencing depression is coming up right now. And you can ask that question to yourself. You can simply ask, what do you want to share with me right now? Or why are you here? Why are you coming up? And you ask these things in a genuinely calm and curious way, not in accusatory way, and not with the expectation that those parts of you have to answer, but rather just putting it out there, letting yourself know that you're interested in you. You're interested in those parts that are feeling a lot. Sometimes you'll get an answer, sometimes you won't. But just putting it out there will change the way that that part feels. Often when we feel overwhelming emotions, we criticize those emotions. We say, oh, why is it that I'm feeling this way? Doesn't make any sense. I'm really upset that I'm feeling this way. And what happens is we actually are creating a narrative of self-hatred, a way that is communicating to these parts that are simply trying to get our attention, that they're not wanted and what they're doing is bad and wrong. And oftentimes that just creates a cycle. So what we're doing is not only letting those parts know that it's okay to feel that way, but we're developing a connection with a new space called self that is resilient and strong and empowered, a place where we're able to tune into and look at those parts of us that are feeling overwhelmed and ask them questions, gain data, and move forward from there in a way that's going to help integrate them into our system. The last thing you can ask in that verbal space, whether it's you're communicating inside or outside, is to just say, whenever you get that information back, like, oh, I'm feeling depressed because X, Y, and Z. This thing happened, or this thing happened in my past, or this thing is happening right now. If it makes sense to you, if it makes sense that you're getting this message, if the answers to your questions are making sense, to let that part know it makes sense. It feels so good to be understood. All human beings want to be understood. And if we can let ourselves know, it makes sense that you're sending me that message. I understand why you're coming up right now. That makes sense to me. If we're able to say that to ourselves, relief will come to you. And this I've experienced with myself and with clients I work with time and time and time again. Bringing that sense of compassion and understanding is just incredibly relieving to the system. And it will ultimately begin to heal and nurture those parts of us that are coming up and feeling overwhelmed. The other form of language that you can try out is writing. So this is another way of communicating in a different way than we sometimes do back and forth in our brain, is to begin to write something down. And you can do the same thing that we just talked about verbally with initially paying attention to the part, letting that part of your system know that you're feeling it, that you know it's there, then asking a question, and then giving feedback that you understand it or that it makes sense to you. So you can do all of that through writing, and as you do that, you can take on different roles. You can be this centered place of self, and it's okay if you're not entirely there. It can just be this much. And you can ask questions from there. You can pay attention to that part from there and write that down. Say, I'm feeling you right now. Is there anything you want to tell me? And then you can kind of step into that part that's feeling depressed and allow that part voice and a place to share its story, and write that down. What are you getting back? What are you getting back? And when you get that information, you can see if that makes sense to you, and you can write down, that makes sense to me. I'm feeling you. I'm understanding you. So these two different ways of communicating with our system will begin to develop, like I said, a muscle memory for that self-led place. It will also give the attention to those parts that most of us have been ignoring for a long time and that really just need a special space to share with us. The third tip I can offer you for healing your parts that are feeling depressed is to change spaces, or to change it up, to do something a little bit different. So oftentimes, people will give you this advice first, that the most important thing when you're feeling overwhelmed is to get rid of it and do something else. And I think this is really reserved for the end of this video, the last thing that I would recommend doing. That doesn't mean that you need to go through the first step and then the second step before hitting the third step. But knowing that these first two steps are vital, that you cannot, I would not recommend only doing the third step, because the third step, although it is very helpful to learn how to change spaces, how to have momentum go in a certain direction and be able to change that momentum in a way that's going to feel more beneficial for your system. That's a very powerful tool to understand and to know. If you only rely on that tool, you're going to miss out on parts of you that are very important to your system, that are actually doing a great job taking care of you, and that can benefit your system in a huge way if you give them the opportunity. So all that being said, let's talk a little bit about what changing spaces means. What does it mean to change momentum? So when I am feeling a lot and I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I often go through those first steps, and they're pretty integrated now, where I don't think about them too much, like, okay, I want to do step one, now I'm going to do step two. It just kind of happens. But at some point I might notice that I'm still feeling funky, and like everything's feeling hard. I kind of feel listless. Maybe I just want to like be in bed and be sad, and that's okay to be that way. But if I'm feeling like I want to do something else, I'm kind of like I've gotten all the information I can from this space, I want to move forward and do something else. Then what I do is I change my physical environment. I actually change my physical environment. Maybe going outside, maybe going for a walk, definitely being in nature or close to nature is really helpful for most people. Engaging in an activity, calling a friend, messaging someone on social media, drawing a picture, writing a poem, doing a jumping jack, smiling, laughing, watching a funny movie. There are an infinite possibilities of ways to change momentum. There's no one that is better than another. It's just what works for you. But knowing that you have that option, that you absolutely have that option, and it might not change momentum like that, it's not like flipping a switch most of the time. But you take baby steps, and the first step is just saying to yourself, I think I'm good feeling with this right now. I think I want to try something else. That's the first step. And then doing something else. And it can be very simple. If you're laying down, stand up. If you're inside, go outside. If you're watching TV, turn it off. If you have a craving for listening to music, put on your headphones. Try it out. There are so many possibilities here. But the important thing is that you do something that is distinctly different than what you are doing in that moment that you're feeling the depression, those parts of you that are feeling depressed. Distinctly different. And if you're not really vibing with that, do something else distinctly different. And you will find something that helps. It might not totally take away the feelings that you were feeling, and that's not really the point. But it will help. You will find things that help. And the most important part of this is that you're trying. And when you try, it tells your system that you care. And that is how we show ourselves love. That is self-love. Trying. Letting ourselves know we're important enough to do something different in this moment and to try this tool out. You're all doing a great job. You're doing a great job. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You're beautiful. You have so much to offer the world. I love you. The world loves you. There is love inside of you for yourself. Keep going. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope it helps. Much love to you. If you want to check out my 30 days program, I would highly recommend it. If you have any questions, you can shoot me a message. Hop over to connormcmillan.com to check out that program, and we will check in with you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.